Hi, everyone. Josh Rugger here in studio early this morning to give you all the latest information you need to know about Hurricane Beryl, which is currently causing some big-time impacts along the Texas Gulf Coast right now. I'm here to answer any question you guys have about what's going to happen in Northwest Arkansas and the River Valley. If you got questions about what's going on right now, I'm here to answer those. I'll probably have this live stream up for about 30 to 45 minutes. I do have a lot more things to do here in the weather lab, but just wanted to provide a quick update for everybody and give you all the latest information you need to know about this potential tropical system that's going to impact our weather coverage area. So let's get right to it. I'm keeping an eye on the comments right now. I see we got Danita, got some other folks in here, Heather as well. So hope you guys are having a great start to your Monday. And we're starting it off with some tropical weather potentially here in Northwest Arkansas and the River Valley. Of course, right now we're keeping an eye on our friends in Texas, especially off to the north and east of Houston. Of course, you can see that flash flood warning with that blue outline around it. That is a considerable tag that's attached to that flash flood warning near the Houston area. They've seen a significant amount of rain already in those locations, and there's also some tornado warnings that are being issued along the eastern edge of Hurricane Beryl, and we've been talking about this over the last several days. If you're on this eastern quadrant of a tropical system, that is where most of the impacts are going to be felt in terms of significant wind, significant rain, and tornado potential. And that's what we're observing right now. And if we take a closer look, you can see these subtle little areas of rotation that pop up, they ebb and flow. They produce tornadoes, and then they kind of weaken pretty rapidly. So we're watching this very closely. We're going to be watching radar very closely tomorrow morning. I know that's for sure. We're going to be watching the radar very closely early this afternoon as well, because we could have the outer bands of Hurricane Beryl impacting Northwest Arkansas and the River Valley later on this afternoon into the evening hours. So a lot of things that we're watching very closely right now. This is the latest in terms of radar on Megadoppler. Of course, we can go here and look at the latest IR scans as well from this tropical system, and look at all those cold cloud tops that are showing up there. This system, the one word that I would describe about Beryl is persistent. It made landfall as a low-end Category 1 hurricane early this morning, and you would anticipate that that would weaken it very quickly. It would be a tropical storm in no time. It's still a Category 1 hurricane as of the 9 o'clock update. So this system has been very persistent throughout its entire lifespan, still producing a significant amount of convection. And it makes me wonder about what's going to go down as we move throughout the next 24 to 48 hours here in Northwest Arkansas. So certainly very interesting. It is as low end as you can get in terms of a Category 1 storm, barely meeting that criteria with 75-mile-per-hour sustained winds and 100-mile-per-hour gusts. It's moving off to the north at 12 miles per hour, so it's speeding up quite a bit. And we're still expecting the system to take a turn towards the north and east within the next couple of hours. It should, at least the center of the system should be in northeastern Texas, southwestern Arkansas by the time we get to early tomorrow morning, right around midnight, 1 o'clock. But of course, the impacts on this system extend outside the center, especially when it comes to tropical depressions or other post-tropical systems, which is what we're going to see with Beryl. Now, there's also a tornado threat, mainly on the eastern side of the storm, which is why I was showing Megadoppler just a few moments ago, because you can see that here on that tornado threat map. The highest tornado risk is going to be in southern Arkansas, northern Louisiana, eastern Texas, extending into central Arkansas. But there is portions of our weather coverage area that's clipped by this. Again, the tornado potential will start as early as this afternoon and continue through Tuesday morning. Of course, heavy rain and gusty winds also possible. When we're talking about wind gusts, we're not talking about anything significant, but 25, 30 miles per hour, certainly a possibility, especially the farther east you go, the closer you get to the center, as well as heavy rainfall, which perhaps is the greatest concern with this system. You can see a flood watch in effect all the way up and down the Interstate 49 corridor. It does not include Benton County or Southwest Missouri or Delaware or Adair counties in our weather coverage area. But that flood watch will start at 1 o'clock p.m. this afternoon and go until 1 o'clock p.m. tomorrow afternoon. So that's what we're dealing with in terms of that flood watch. So that's the latest details in terms of potential impacts. What about model data? What about future track? We're going to show that real quick, and then we're going to get to some of your questions because I see some folks already asking some good ones in the comments. So I'll get to that in just a few moments. let's look at future track real quick here and look at the latest timing. So there's the bands that I was talking about. These outer bands are going to start developing and moving into northwest Arkansas and the River Valley around 5, 6, 7 o'clock p.m. Now, it's very hard to determine where exactly these rain bands set up. Of course, these rain bands always have the potential to produce that low-end tornado threat. Thankfully, we're going to be on the western side of this system, so not as high of a tornado threat as what's going to be observed in central Arkansas, but still something to watch very closely. Now, we'll probably have a break in the activity after those bands move out, so 8, 9 o'clock. If things are starting to quiet down outside, that's because the main piece of energy is starting to lift off to the north and east. And this is the latest model data. You can see widespread shower and storm development showing up right around 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And this is my concern with Beryl. Not necessarily in terms of, winds or tornado threats or anything like that, but in terms of the timing of the heaviest rainfall. You notice here how all of that moderate rain, all those reds and oranges and yellows are popping up in northwest Arkansas during your morning commute tomorrow. So you have to be weather aware. I've been recommending people leaving at 30, 45 minutes earlier than they typically do, just because this system can sneak up on you, and it can cause a lot of rain in a very short period of time, especially along and south of Interstate 40. So this is something that we're going to be watching very closely throughout the morning shows tomorrow. Obviously, we're going to be watching the rain bands later on this afternoon, but look at some of the rainfall totals these models are pumping out. Again, this is in a very short amount of time. So this is something that we've got to watch very closely. Now, there is a very sharp cutoff between the haves and the have-nots, and that is to be expected with the tropical system that's moving through central Arkansas. When you're on the western side of the system, there's a lot more uncertainty in terms of how much rain there's going to be. But I still anticipate at least a half inch to an inch of rain for northwest Arkansas. This model's pumping out higher rainfall totals. We'll see if that's going to be the case for NWA. But in the River Valley, that's a bit of a different story. I think 2, 3, 4 inches of rain will be common, with locally higher amounts possible from Scott to Logan County, maybe even up towards Boone County as well. These areas right here need to be keeping a close eye on the radar data as we go throughout the early morning hours tomorrow, because that's where the swath of heavier rainfall or localized flooding potential could really set up along those heavier rainfall bands. So that's what we're looking at right now in terms of timing, in terms of rainfall amounts. I could show you models for days right now if you're curious. Pretty much every single one has rain in some form or fashion. There's no doubt about it. We're going to see rain, but I mean, sometimes you get models like this that try to pick up on those rain bands, and you can see 3 inches in Rogers. Again, it's hard to determine where exactly the heaviest swath of rain is going to set up. I think northwest Arkansas is the least likely area for that to happen, but there's always a potential that a stray rain band or two causes big time issues. So that is something that we're going to be watching very closely. But I think the GFS actually is doing a pretty good job in terms of where exactly the heaviest rain swath is going to set up. Again, it's going to be right on the border of our weather coverage area. So that's what we're looking at right now. And of course, I know a lot of folks have questions, so we're going to get to that. I'm going to go back to a IR scan of Beryl right now, and I'm going to get to anybody's questions that we may have. But man, what an impressive system. Again, my one word to describe Beryl is persistent. It just has fought through everything, and it just continues to maintain its strength at this hour. I'm interested to see if it has weakened below hurricane limits by this point. But let's take a look at some of the questions and comments that we've got going on right now. We've got Stacy asking, heading to Little Rock today and heading back tomorrow about 10:30 to 11 o'clock. How does that area look? Well, Little Rock is probably going to see more impacts in northwest Arkansas, Stacy, because the center is going to be moving right through Little Rock. So you said you're heading to Little Rock today. You're heading back tomorrow about 10:30 to 11. Are you heading 10:30 to 11 in the morning? If you're heading 10:30 to 11 in the morning, I do think, there probably will still be some heavy rainfall sticking around. But I do think the bulk of it's going to be out by the afternoon, especially in central Arkansas. So during the afternoon hours, things will improve drastically over the entire state of Arkansas. So 10:30, 11, that's kind of on the fringes of when things are starting to wrap up and when heavy rain is being maintained in central Arkansas. But after that point, I think things will improve pretty rapidly. Yeah, no kidding, James. These tropical systems, it's been a while since we've seen one impact the state of Arkansas, much less Northwest Arkansas and the River Valley. So interested to see what happens with this one. It's always a wild card, it seems like, with these tropical systems in Arkansas. So it always throws us a few curveballs, whether that be with less rain or more rain. It just depends on how these systems kind of evolve in real time. What's it? What is it going to be like leaving Northwest Arkansas tomorrow morning and driving through Memphis to Alabama? Well, Mike, I'm telling you right now, it's going to be very rainy, and it might be windy, and I think you're going to have to be very careful on the roadways tomorrow morning, especially if you're going through Memphis, Alabama. You're going to be driving right through the center of the storm, getting to Memphis. So you're going to be experiencing a lot of heavy rainfall tomorrow morning. That might be a bit of a problem right there, Mike, if I'm being honest with you. So tomorrow morning will be a little bit dicey. I think that's when the bulk of the heaviest rainfall will not only be impacting Northwest Arkansas and the River Valley, but also the entire state of Arkansas. How's Rudy looking impact-wise? We really need some rain. Well, Danita, Rudy, definitely a little bit more of a favorable area for heavier rainfall. I think 1 to 2 inches of rain is looking pretty likely in that area. But in terms of significant flooding potential, I think that will be just east of Rudy. So beneficial rainfall for sure. Hopefully that flooding threat holds off. But I do think some areas will see some localized flooding, especially along the Interstate 40 corridor. That's where most of the impacts will be seen, I think. Mike, Bella Vista impacts, the models were split. We seem to be on the thin line between something and nothing. Well, Mike, I think Bella Vista will at least get some rain, but there is a reason why Benton County is not in the flood watch right now. And that's because with the system going right through central Arkansas and us being on the western edge of that system, the potential for heavier rain is less likely. Not to say it won't happen. Sometimes these remnants can expand and throw out rain band after rain band, and it just keeps raining even on the western side. But it's a bit more up in the air in terms of Bella Vista impacts. I will say the tornado threat is almost non-existent in Bella Vista just because it's so far west. Flash flooding potential is quite low in Bella Vista, but heavy rain and gusty winds, 20, 25 miles per hour, that is something that could happen. But you're right, Bella Vista is kind of on the thin line between something and nothing. I would say a half inch of rain for Bella Vista. That's what I'm leaning more towards there in northern Benton County in southwest Missouri. So, Jason, I can't tell you if Hot Springs is going to get tornadoes or not. I can't tell you if they are or they aren't. That's what I was trying to say right there. I've been having a big problem with speaking today for some reason. I don't know why. But let's look at the tornado risk again. And Hot Springs is in a higher tornado threat than Northwest Arkansas. I will say that. You can see it's in that low range right there along Interstate 30, Highway 70. But I will say this: if the system swings through Hot Springs and Little Rock and goes a little bit farther east than what the track is projecting, then the tornado potential is not going to be as high in Hot Springs. So I can't tell you if Hot Springs is going to get tornadoes or not. It's too early to say that. You never know until the system moves through. But Hot Springs is in a higher threat for tornadoes than most of the surrounding area. So you need to stay weather aware. You need to have multiple ways to receive warnings later on tonight into tomorrow because Hot Springs is in that higher end threat for tornadoes compared to the rest of the state of Arkansas. So thank you for asking that question. We are staying in Mountain Home, Arkansas. Supposed to leave Sunday to go home in Arizona. Should we leave earlier? How dangerous? Supposed to leave Sunday. So it says that you're supposed to leave Sunday, Crystal. Well, if you're leaving next Sunday, then you're fine. Because this system will be long gone by then. But if you're leaving tomorrow morning or something like that, then it could be a little bit more dicey, especially being in Mountain Home. You have to get through the system. So if you're leaving tomorrow, it'll be dicey. If you're leaving Sunday next week, you're going to be fine. Everything's going to be fine. It's too early to determine if there's going to be showers or storms next week, but it does look like we're going to be in a pretty dry weather pattern after the system moves through. So next Sunday is going to be fine. But if you're leaving tomorrow or whatever, especially during the morning, it will be a little bit more dicey around Mountain Home and really across the entire state. truth be told. Towson Avenue and Fort Smith is torn up with them repaving it. Uneven lanes. It's going to be flooding once all the rain comes in. Be careful for sure on Towson. Well, thank you for that report, Josh, first of all. And that is something to watch very closely right there, for sure. I am concerned about flooding. There's a lot of these areas in northwest Arkansas and the River Valley that just seem very susceptible to flooding. And that's the main concern with this system. That's why we got this big flood watch in effect. And again, the River Valley along and south of Interstate 40, especially in far eastern portions of our weather coverage area. I mean, this is where that bulk of the heaviest rainfall is expected, at least according to this model. And I think that's going to pan out. So we'll have to watch this very closely, especially as you get closer to the center of Beryl. Northwest Arkansas, I think 1 to 2 inches might be a little bit overdone in these areas, truth be told. I think a half inch to an inch of rain is a much better bet, but we'll see what happens. Again, sometimes these rain bands can throw a wrench into everything, and maybe the model's picking up on something there. But typically, when we're on the western edge of a system, we don't see as many impacts from tropical systems. So we're going to be watching that very closely. Do you think the Cardinals game will be rained out tomorrow evening in St. Louis? Well, Wyatt, let's look here at what's going on in St. Louis, because that's quite a bit of rain that's going to be moving through the St. Louis area too. So, yeah, it might be a little dicey for baseball tomorrow evening. Well, yeah, especially tomorrow evening, because tomorrow evening, that's when things are ramping up in St. Louis. And that's when things are winding down here in northwest Arkansas. And you'll see that right here. Look at that. See St. Louis on the top right of your screen? It's quite a bit of rainfall that's moving there through the St. Louis area. So I don't know. They might delay it maybe to later in the evening with lighter rain, but I don't know. It's going to be cutting it close, Wyatt, for baseball in St. Louis tomorrow, if I'm being honest with you. So we'll watch that very closely there. Hopefully the Cardinals can play some ball tomorrow for y'all. Severe weather potential for Carroll County. Low, Kelsey. Very, very low for Carroll County. And as a matter of fact, the farther east you go, the more likely you are to run into maybe that low-end tornado potential. But it's looking pretty low for our weather coverage area, especially on the western edge of this system. So I know a lot of folks are asking about tornado potential. But I think the majority of it is going to be east of northwest Arkansas and the River Valley. Just looking at how these systems kind of evolve and what we typically see with post-tropical depressions or tropical depressions in our area, the eastern quadrant of a tropical cyclone is where most of the tornado threat is. But I will say this afternoon, we got to watch these rain bands, because these rain bands, they're split apart from the main piece of energy, and these can cause tornado potential, even outside of the main right quadrant region. So this is something to watch very closely. And that's what we'll be keeping an eye on right around 4, 5, 6, 7 o'clock p.m. across northwest Arkansas and the River Valley. Let's see here. So we got some questions here, Hannah. When is the rain supposed to hit Fayetteville? Well, Hannah, we could have rain as early as this afternoon, but the main piece of energy, as you can see in our 2-day forecast timeline, is going to be during the morning hours tomorrow. Tomorrow morning between 12 a.m. to 9 a.m., I think that is when the bulk of the activity is going to be moving through our weather coverage area. That's when we could have that flooding potential ramp up. Now, if we look at radar right now, and we'll do that real quick. I'm going to take out all these little things here. We've already got some bands that are starting to set up, and these are lifting off to the north and west as we speak. So we already got some light rain that's trying to push along the I-40 corridor. But these little bands right here, these could be arriving later on this afternoon, and that could be pushing into northwest Arkansas right around 4 or 5 o'clock. So these will need to be watched for little areas of rotation, because this is what will be our main tornado threat here in our weather coverage area, in my opinion. So we'll be watching that very closely. Let's see here. Oh, a lot of questions here. Lots and lots of questions. I'm trying to get to all of them here. So just bear with me. Because I see we've got a lot of stuff here. Let's see. This looks like we got a bot in here. There might be a bot on YouTube, which is just filling up my entire comment section at this time. So thanks a lot, bot. We are staying in an RV and mountain home. Got to travel through Texas to go home to Arizona. Is it best to wait it out and leave Sunday? I think I just answered this question, but I think you asked this again, Crystal. If you're leaving Sunday, you're going to be fine because it's Sunday. This system is only going to be around for about 24, 36 hours. By the time we get to tomorrow afternoon, it's out of here. So if you are leaving Sunday, you're fine. Now, if you're asking about staying in mountain home in an RV, I still think you're fine. But I will say the flooding potential will be a little bit higher in mountain home. And here's what I mean by that. If we go to the Weather Prediction Center, and I think I've just figured out what you were asking. You're asking if it's okay to stay in mountain home. You'll see that we have a slight risk of excessive rainfall over most of the weather coverage area. What does a slight risk of excessive rainfall mean? Well, it means that we could see isolated and scattered flash flooding over the area. And you check out mountain home, it's in that slight risk of excessive rainfall. So flash flooding is a concern. And if you're near a body of water, which I know mountain home's got a lot of areas there that have water, you need to probably move to higher ground. I still think you're fine to stay in the RV because we're not talking about significant winds or anything major, though there is a low-end tornado threat. So do keep that in mind. But you need to get into higher ground if you're by a body of water, Crystal. I wouldn't necessarily say to completely ditch your plans and leave the area because by the tomorrow afternoon, things are going to be great and the rest of your vacation is going to be great. But if you're staying near water, I would get to higher ground in mountain home. So I hope that answered your question right there in regards to waiting it out or staying there. Let's see here. So we got another question here. Are we going to have any tornadoes? So again, it's hard to determine here with these tropical systems if we're going to see tornado potential or not. But here in Northwest Arkansas in the River Valley, the tornado threat is very low. And it looks like that most of our weather coverage area is going to avoid it. You're asking about Rogers. I can't necessarily rule it out. It's a non-zero threat for Rogers. But it's going to be this afternoon to the evening, really, because by the time we get to tomorrow morning, the right quadrant region of the system is lifting off to the north and east, and that system will be out of our area. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and ban this user here. If you're on YouTube, you've probably seen the bot. I'm just banning them. Why? If you've seen the bot, let me know. But I just went ahead and banned that person. They were just filling up my comment section because there's a lot of good questions here. And I want to make sure I get to all of them. So is it the right side of the hurricane that is most dangerous? That's a very good question. That is correct. And you'll actually see that reflected here on Megadoppler. I'm going to go back to Megadoppler here. Notice how the right side of the system has all of the heaviest rain, while the left side does have heavy rain, but you're not seeing a whole lot of flash flood warnings here, right? Because all of that energy is mostly confined to that right side, especially as tropical systems are beginning to die out. You start seeing them become asymmetrical. And so you see all of that rain get pushed to the right side of the system, or at least most of the rainfall. But the left side can still have some impacts. Don't get me wrong. But the right side has a little bit more of that low level wind shear, a little bit more of that storm relativisticity, all those things that we look at for tornado potential. And that becomes a little bit more prevalent when we get to talking about tropical depressions and stuff that moves through Arkansas. Also, I will say about the right side of a tropical system, that's where you see the bulk of the storm surge as well. So Galveston area, south of Lake Jackson, when this system made landfall, that's where that 7-foot storm surge was observed. While there was a lesser storm surge a little bit farther south and west, and then eventually you get too far north and east and you don't see as much storm surge. But again, the right side of the system is the most dangerous when it comes to a hurricane. And it looks like the center of it will be moving through central Arkansas, therefore putting us on the western side of the hurricane. So good question right there. Kind of a continuation of what we were talking about. Jeremy, so here's the deal. This is why the system is not going to do that. Because I know a lot of folks are maybe wondering about this. Is it going to stay north? Is it going to impact northwest Arkansas. Maybe there's more impacts than what we're anticipating. There still could be more impacts, but that would be from rain bands. However, the system actually moving north and not moving north and east is not going to happen. And the reason why is because we have a trough that's developing right here. And you can see this cold front that's located over northwest Arkansas that's diving south to the east, the stationary front. This is going to absorb Beryl eventually as it moves off to the north and east, and these systems guide it. So this system is about to turn north and east once it interacts with the stationary front and this cold front, and that's going to jog it to the north and east because it has to follow these troughs. So that's what we're looking at right now with Beryl. This trough is going to absorb it, and then it's going to move off to the north and east as a post-tropical cyclone rather than a tropical depression, because it's going to be losing its tropical characteristics once this area of low pressure absorbs it and pushes it off to the north and east. So good question there, but that's what we're looking at in terms of the track of Beryl. All right, yeah, why it's like it's been pretty entertaining because nobody knows what I'm probably talking about right now, but I see like every single comment from people on the right side of the screen, whether that be from YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, anything. It all comes on the right side of the screen. And so I was just seeing like somebody was asking a legitimate question. I was about to click on it and then bot. So I'm glad that StreamYard has something where I can just block them. That way I can see everybody's comments that are legitimate. So, yeah, Wyatt getting some free entertainment there. So we got specific towns that are being asked about: Springdale, Van Buren. So I'll go ahead and show this here. I'm going to show this again because it's really hard to determine exact locations and what's going to happen at every single location, which is why we kind of talk about these things in more of a broad sense. But if you're talking about northwest Arkansas, if you're talking about the River Valley, which is where Springdale and Van Buren are, I will say for Springdale, lesser impacts probably than what's going to be observed in Van Buren, just because Springdale, we're getting so far off to the west from this system that the swath of heaviest rainfall looks like it's going to be east of there. So Interstate 49 corridor, lesser impacts expected, but still going to see some heavy rainfall, still have the potential for localized flooding. But I think east of, the Bentonville, Rogers, Fayetteville, Fort Smith line, if you're east of these areas, this is where you got to watch very closely for more widespread flooding. So if you live in Waldron, Boonville, Clarksville, Ozark, Huntsville, Jasper, Harrison, these areas right here, I think, have a much better chance to see significant rainfall. Interstate 49 corridor areas west of there, there's still going to be rain, but it's just like every single time we get some of these tropical systems that move through northwest Arkansas and they take this track right through central Arkansas, we get less rain than what the models are showing. So I know it's showing like 1 to 2 inches of rain in northwest Arkansas. I personally lean more towards a ½ inch to 1.5 inches. So I'm gonna go ½ inch to 1.5 inches for northwest Arkansas. Locally higher amounts up to 4 inches, maybe even higher possible though, south of Interstate 40. So that's what we're looking at right there. Let's see here. Yeah, I'm not going to use that comment there. Let's see here. Absolutely, Vanessa. Absolutely appreciate you being on here. And we'll be on here for a few more moments. If anybody has a question or comment, just let me know. I'll answer it. But I just saw a couple comments there that I'm not going to acknowledge at this time. Let's see here. So let's see what else we're going to look at here. Let's go ahead and look at some of those other computer models again, because I think this is interesting because every single computer model has a different output, but each one has kind of the same general idea. Now look at the graph model. Now let's look at the graph and see why it's pumping out 3+ inches of rain in Rogers. And that's got to be from a band of rain that it's forecasting that maybe these other models are not picking up on. Again, it's so hard to figure out, if these systems are going to pump out more rain bands than what are expected. But let's look at this here. So it's doing a good job so far on the current radar loop, though it has a little bit more shower and storm activity than what's actually going on in far northwestern Arkansas. But there's the rain bands. Look at that. It sets up this swath of heavy rain over northern Benton County. I just don't know if I buy that. Um, because these rain bands they move out a lot quicker than what this model is showing. It's also underdoing the amount of rain though for Northwest Arkansas. So again, we're going to have this shot of shower and storm activity this afternoon, mainly between 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. We'll probably get a break in the action, and then overnight tonight after midnight, that's when the main piece of energy starts to roll in. And this model is always too quick with it, which is why I was using the HRRR, because the HRRR is doing a lot better job with keeping the system around long enough. So there you can kind of see it here reflected in this model. There's the rain bands right there that I was just talking about, showing up right around 5, 6 o'clock. We get a break, and then here comes the moderate to heavy rainfall during the overnight hours, right as you're heading to work. Hopefully, most of the rain can be out by the time we get to the 8, 9 o'clock time frame. I do think that will be the case, but watch it. And then after that, during the afternoon, all that activity will be well off to the east of the area. So that's what we're looking at right there. Let's see here. So Connie, yes, we're going to see some rain in Springdale. But, again, I want to stress this, and this is something I was stressing too during the morning. We're not going to see hurricane or tropical storm impacts on the system. It's going to be a low-end tropical depression. It's what we call remnants. So it's a disorganized cluster of showers and storms as they're moving through. It's nothing that we haven't seen before throughout the year. It's just that this is associated with tropical moisture. So we could have some gusty winds as well, 25, 30 mile per hour winds at most. We could have a low-end tornado threat as well in eastern portions of our weather coverage area. But for the I-49 corridor or Interstate 40, I think that tornado threat is just not really going to be prevalent with the system. Unless we get these bands initially this afternoon, which we'll be watching very closely, I don't think the tornado threat is quite as high over Northwest Arkansas and the River Valley as compared to a little bit farther east, let's say Little Rock, Memphis, Southwest Arkansas. Those areas will have a much greater tornado threat from this particular system. But we're going to be watching all this very closely. What you need to know is that tomorrow morning we have the threat for locally heavy rainfall that could cause some impacts on the roadways, that could cause some flooding in portions of Northwest Arkansas and the River Valley, but more scattered, widespread flooding will be possible a little bit farther south and east along Interstate 40 towards Clarksville, a little bit farther north towards Harrison. Those areas right there will have a much better chance for significant rainfall. That kind of sums up this system here in a nutshell for Northwest Arkansas and the River Valley. All right, here. Let's see. So, Louisiana needs to come get their weather. That is for sure. And here's the deal. We will take the rain because we still have abnormally dry conditions across Northwest Arkansas. Last I checked, we still have a deficit in terms of precipitation over our area. So we need some rain. And so obviously we're going to be watching this very closely over the next 24 to 36 hours. Hopefully this doesn't just completely miss us, which I don't think will happen, but we'll watch it. But we definitely do need some rain here in Northwest Arkansas. So we'll take that, and hopefully the system can keep weakening as it progresses out to the north and east because it's been so persistent. Let's take a look at the latest update, by the way. Let's see if it has weakened to a tropical storm yet. I'm very interested to see this. Is it still a hurricane? There it is. It finally has weakened to a tropical storm. It's still a high-end tropical storm with 70 mile per hour sustained winds and gusts up to 90 miles per hour. But Beryl is no longer a hurricane. It is now a tropical storm. So that has just now been updated from the National Hurricane Center. Man, what a persistent system. I mean, it was a hurricane for a lot longer than I thought it was going to be. That's for sure. And even what the National Hurricane Center had projected. But now it's 20 miles west-northwest of Houston, Texas. I think we had somebody ask, is it going to stay with that northerly track? Well, it's starting to turn towards the north-northeast now at 13 miles per hour. And let's look at the latest track from the National Hurricane Center. It's jogging a little bit farther south and east, folks. So a tropical depression moving through southwestern Arkansas at 7 o'clock a.m. tomorrow. If this track holds, we are not going to see a whole lot of rainfall in far northwestern Arkansas. If this is indeed the track, this will not bring a lot of rain, probably to most of our weather coverage area, because this is too far east. If you want a more significant system over northwest Arkansas, if you're looking to get more widespread rainfall rates, You need that system to move here. And the arrow, just like that. You see that arrow? That's where you will typically see more impacts over northwest Arkansas, especially if you're going to be on the western quadrant. The most ideal track for very heavy rainfall over our area would be more so right through here. Again, the eastern side of a storm is going to be where most of the impacts are seen. Trace, do we know how Texas is doing? Has there been fatalities? I haven't heard from my friends in the area. I'm getting concerned. So, Trace, are they still down there right now, or are they riding out the storm? Is my first question. And second of all, I think the answer to your question, if you can't get in contact with them, the most likely scenario is that they're dealing with power outages. And I'm sure the power outage situation is starting to ramp up there. So let's go ahead and look at that. I'm gonna go to Texas right now, and you're gonna see a whole lot of power outages. Let me show you this right now. And this is what I was just talking about. I said the big reason why you're probably not getting in contact with them is because their power's out. Check this out. I'm going to go ahead and present the screen here. So stand by for just 1 second. Give me just a second here. It takes a little while to pull this up. Okay, I'm gonna make this full screen here. That way you can see it a little bit better. Yeah, look at all these power outages that are going on right now. I mean, almost the entire county is without power down in southeastern Texas here. And then we go a little bit farther west. You got 14,364 without power compared to 16,409 in the county. Galveston, 66,823 without power. I mean, almost entire counties are without power right now. So this is probably why you're not able to get into contact with them because the power's out. Now, in terms of fatalities, I haven't seen anything yet. But looks like somebody's reporting there's been 1 death according to law enforcement. So Benjamin, thank you for that report right there. So looks like there has been 1 death, unfortunately, from the system so far. But in terms of power outages, there's a whole lot of them. Entire counties without power. We've got 43,000 out of 46,000 without power there. 66,000 out of 105,000 out in Galveston. 14,000 out of 16,000 out there. Almost the entire county out here, 6,436 compared to 6,519 that are tracked. So big power problems right now in Texas. And so if you're trying to get into contact with folks, more than likely their power's out. More than likely the cell towers are out right now. And it's going to take a while before that power comes back on. Look at this, though. CenterPoint Energy. 2,600,000 customers that they track and almost 2 million total without power. Energy, 511,939 that they track, 122,445 without power. So, yeah, there's a lot of power outages going on right now in the state of Texas. And there will probably be more power outages as that system lifts off to the north and east. So, hopefully that answered your question right there. And yes, absolutely, Trace. We are praying for those folks in Texas that are impacted by the system. I said a prayer last night for everybody down there in Texas, and hoping that the system can start to wind down, which it is. Galveston looks like most of the impacts are out there. Houston, the rain will be ending soon. So again, this is a quick moving system. So that's the good news about it. It's a quick moving system. It's nothing like previous tropical systems in the past, like Harvey. This is not going to be a system that sticks around for a long time. That includes our weather coverage area as well. But one more thing before I wrap this up. If anybody has a last-second question, I can get to it really quick, but I got to wrap this up pretty soon. There is a tornado warning that's just now been issued just off to the west of Kirbyville, near Fred. You can see that tornado warning that's in effect right now. We're going to set that storm motion from warning. Again, the eastern side of these storms, they just always cause problems. We are in a pretty bad radar spot, so let's go ahead and go to this Louisiana radar. We're going to load up this radar right now, and we'll take a look at this real quick, and then we'll wrap this up. But a lot of flash flood warnings in effect, that is for sure, in Texas. And probably more to come as that system lifts off to the north and east towards Shreveport and other locations. It looks like that radar's out. So I'm going to move on to Shreveport. Shreveport's probably not going to give a good view, but we're going to try. That's not very good. That's pretty bad. Okay, let's go. Let's try Lake Charles. Lake Charles might give us a good view. Hopefully the radar sight's up. These sites tend to have issues. So yeah, you can see that area of rotation right there. It's very clear where that rotation is. And we're going to go ahead and put that in motion. It was a little bit stronger, but that's the thing about the eastern side of these systems. They just ramp up really quickly, and then they kind of fall apart really quickly too. And so this is why we're going to have to watch the radar like a hawk. Okay, yeah. Josh Weisel, one fatality in Beryl in Harris County, Texas. Tree fell on somebody's home. That's tough. That's really sad. Praying for those people down there that were impacted and praying for that family. Never want to see that with these systems. But it looks like most of the people were out where the storm surge was. So that's good. Hopefully there's nothing that's reported from that too. Man, that's really sad though to hear that report. Thanks, Josh, for letting me know about where that was. But yeah, there's tornado warning on the eastern side. So if you got any folks that live near Kirbyville, give them a heads up. They got a tornado warning that's in effect just off to the west of U.S. Highway 96 along U.S. Highway 190. And that is lifting off to the north and west as we speak. And one other thing I'll mention about this system before I wrap it up, tomorrow's going to be weird. What I mean by that is we're going to have heavy rain. We're going to have this tropical system swing through. And there's not going to be a whole lot of lightning. That's the thing with these systems. I mean, I'm going to go back to this real quick before I wrap it up. I'm going to show you just how little lightning there is with these tropical systems. Let me go back to Mega Doppler here. I want to show one more thing. I have lightning turned on right now. Where's the lightning? Oh, there's one. There's one little lightning strike right there. There's not even lightning with this tornado warning. That's the thing about tropical systems. They will not produce a whole lot of lightning. So even though it's going to be torrential rain potentially in portions of the river valley, even though there could be maybe some lightning here and there, it's not going to be anything like what we typically see with severe weather events. So that's the bottom line there. This is going to be a weird system, but it's going to be in and out very quickly. So anyways, I appreciate everybody joining in, asking some questions and for their comments and everything. Again, I'm sure Dan Peyton will have an update coming up this afternoon as those outer rain bands swing through. Again, the tornado threat is very low, but it's not zero. We're going to be watching that very closely. I think the heavy rain threat is going down a little bit for portions of our weather coverage area. We'll watch it very closely, but I'm telling you, if that track continues to shift south and east, we're not going to see a whole lot of rain in northwest Arkansas. We're going to see a lot less than what the models are showing, that's for sure. So that is something to watch very closely. I still think we get rain in some form or fashion. I still think if you live along Interstate 40, Clarksville, east of Fort Smith, east of I-49 towards Boone, Franklin, Logan County, Scott counties, you do need to be keeping an eye on that flash flooding potential. But otherwise, we're going to wrap things up here. Again, thank you guys so much for joining in. Really, really appreciate everybody's comments and questions. And we will see you guys later in the next live stream. God bless everybody. Have a marvelous rest of your Monday.